Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Surge here with a new video about Firestorm. So, these starter decks are pretty cool, right? They're a pretty great way to get started with the game. They come with a lot of great stuff in them. They have a bunch of good staples. And also, a number of them have like a lot of the core for truly viable strategies. Like stuff like Champion of Zeus, and I would say all four of these have the core of like a decently viable strategy, which is like really the first time we've had that with Elestrals starter decks. Like, all of the boss cards of these starter decks are pretty solid cards that you can build around. And with all these staples in here, you might want to just go, I want to just expand on what I have here. And since each of these starter decks is a double starter deck, you can pull from the other side of the starter deck to help upgrade. Or you can get the other one and pull some cards from there. So what I want to go through today is I want to go through each of these starter decks and go using just the cards that you can get in the starter decks. What can we do to upgrade these decks and make these decks a bit more complete, a bit more cohesive, a bit more ready for you to bring to any local tournaments or any webcam casuals, or even any bigger tournaments if you really feel up to it. Because these feel like really good starts, and I want to help provide some of that guidance to players. So yeah, we're going to go through that. Alright, so first up, we're going to be starting with Hestia. I think Hestia is a good place to start because this is like one of the like Bears is a deck that looks like a very real contender. If you're going to upgrade any one of these and you want one that's like a really something that's going to become really good almost certainly, then Hestia is a really good place to start. Hestia also has like everything you want for that core. Basically everything you want for that core. Like the entire Bear deck is everything that previously existed. It's all reprinted in here, and we've got all the new stuff too. So Hestia is a real great place for us to be starting. Yeah. So we're gonna go through Hestia first. So this is our base starter deck. It has some fluff that we don't really want. The Champion of Hestia stuff doesn't really integrate together too well. We're going to be focusing on Majursa and the Bear side of things. So that means we're going to be letting go of some of the Hestia stuff. This is the baseline this we're working with. Has of course some deficiencies to take care of. There's a bunch of cards in here that aren't like generally useful. A lot of the Bears aren't very good cards. The Champions of Hestia are not particularly great, and they're at one copy too, which means they're not very consistent to see anyways. And our counter rune lineup is pretty low. We just have the 2 shields and the 2 don't pokes. So obviously there's a lot to supplement there. We also have the chains, the Chariot Run, and the Pandora's Box, but also impact combat, so they're not true counter runes. Our first modification is going to be we just pull from the Poseidon half of the starter. That's what we do first. So down here at the bottom, I have the cards that we are taking out. So from the Poseidon starter, we are putting in the 2 Galaxy Champion of Poseidons and the 1 Veritaqua. Galaxy is really nice. It just has to swap the stats of our opponent's thing while putting Galaxy up to 5 attack. It's able to clear a lot of bodies pretty easily by doing so. And we have Veritaqua. We just kind of want more good bodies. We do have to keep like all of the Bears in, which is not super ideal because a lot of the Bears aren't individually good cards. But we do value these Bear names more than we do like stuff like the Warmite, not the Warmite, the Torchin, the Amphirex, the Glaciersa. Also, generally, when we're starting with any of these starter decks, most of the starter decks have only about 15 One-Spirit Elestrals, and you want a few more than that. So we're always going to be looking to increase that One-Spirit Elestral count right away. Other than that, for the champions, we are keeping in Warmite, so that can be something that we search with the Earth Scout champion of Hestia. And Warmite is just a pretty solid card. You play it out. On receive, it will drop something's attack by 3. So anything with 5 or less attack, it is going to just be able to beat over and defeat, which puts it in a pretty good spot as a card. We're pretty happy with that. It's going to be able to beat over things. It also has some nice synergy with some of the like not quite as bad counter runes that we don't really have good replacements for at this stage. The Hestia's Hearth creates a really powerful combat trick with Warmite, though given they're both one-ofs, it's pretty unlikely you'll see them together. Altar can also be used to trigger Warmite's on receive effect during your opponent's turn when they've already declared an attack, so that's pretty good there too. If you somehow get 2 waters on the board, you can do the same with Galaxy, which is pretty cool. And other than that, we're just using the contents of the Poseidon Starter deck to shore up our counter rune lineup. We're bringing in the Tsunamis, we're bringing in the 1 copy of Altar, the 2 PTAs, the 2 Gorgons. Those all come from the Poseidon side of the starter, and that's pretty good. We have to modify the Spirit deck, of course, here. We do not need 12 Fires and 8 Frost, so we're going to drop 2 from each of those for 4 Waters to accommodate the Water Elestrals that we've put in, the Tsunamis, and also give us the capacity to misenchant our Elestrals with Water so that they are immune to our opponent's Tsunamis. So that's where we are for now. Now we're going to look at if you don't have any copies of the other starter deck, but you have 2 copies of the Hestia, the Poseidon versus Hestia starter deck, where can we go from there? Not quite as many upgrades, but like upping the quantities of our good cards is just really, really nice. So we get the 3rd copy of the Earthseer, we get the 3rd copy of the Ursicle, we get the 3rd copy of the Galaxy, we get the 2nd copy of the Warmite. Those are the big ones. Those are the big ones that we get. We also get the 3rd Dome Poke and the 3rd Gaze. We cut the Altar in that process. Warmite we keep in because, as I said, it's just really easy to be able to beat over guys. In this process, we take out the Earthsmog. Earthsmog is definitely the worst of the bears. Neither version of Earth Scout is a whole lot better, but we would still rather have it than the Earthsmog because the Earth Scout can convert into an Earthseer. We don't want to convert into an Ursicle because we won't get its effect. And Earth Scout can still search for the Warmite, which is pretty solid since we still have that in the deck. 3rd Gaze, of course, we take out the Veritaqua because that was just in here to fill space in the previous version. We also put in the Earth Scout. We take out the Earth Scout because that card is just not very solid, and it was only 1 of anyways. Laurels is not super necessary. It has some general issues in the Firestorm format where it's not really able to kill the thing that you really want it to, and we have some really powerful removal stuff in bears naturally, so we don't really need it. I didn't really talk about it in the previous one, but we drop Hestia because Hestia doesn't really provide anything to bears. It just gives you like a worse way of getting Ursaden up to 4 spirits, and you really would not prefer to get Ursaden up to 4 spirits that way, so you don't really want Hestia in the deck, which is kind of weird because it's a Hestia starter deck. But the boss card Majorsa is not really, despite having a second effect that wants you to have Hestia on the board, Majorsa is just not really a Hestia card. So if we want to be building around that boss card of the starter deck, the big foil card, we do end up needing to drop the Hestia to get the best deck that we can upgrading these starter decks. Then we are going to jump over to if you have 1 copy of each of the starter decks. So you have 1 copy. You don't have the 2nd copy of Poseidon versus Hestia, and you have 1 copy of Zeus versus Hermes. So this goes back to using the version we had when we were only pulling from the Poseidon half and modifying from there. So the cards we see at the bottom are basically the same. I didn't even realize that we end up making the same number of modifications, but I guess that is the case. Let's check my math on that like real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that's the math. It is exactly the same. So we're modifying the exact same 7. Well, let's check the spirit math on that last one real quick. before we move on. Yeah, there's no extra modifications of the Spirit Math with that one. So we are taking out the same 7 cards with the same reasoning. And what we put in instead in this version is we put in the 2 rabbits. Very, very good card. We put in the 2 Jolton since we can't have 3 Ursical. You don't really want Jolton in the final build of bears. You don't really need it. Ursical tends to be enough. But in this version, we do kind of want like more good guys. And Jolton can get us one of our combo pieces. So it's not too bad. We do not go up to 3 Ambrosia despite having access to it because Hibernation is just a pseudo Ambrosia. So like we're fine on just having 2. A 2-2 split works completely fine in this context. We put in the 2 Zeus because Zeus is just a very, very powerful card. And given the low stat lines of bears, they really appreciate the support of Zeus. And Zeus also works very well with the Cryoblast that we already have in the deck. And then we just put in the 3rd Gorgon's Gaze because Gorgon's Gaze is just a very, very powerful counter rune that you always want to have at 3 copies if you can. It's just very versatile, able to do a lot of stuff, able to answer a lot of situations, so you want to have 3 copies of it. We have to modify our Spirit Math once again to accommodate the Thunder stuff we now have. We drop 1 from the water, 2 from the fire, and 2 from the frost for 5 Thunders. With this amount of Thunder Elestrals and the Zeus, 5 Thunder Spirits is about exactly where you want to be sitting. We're fine on 3 water here. You only have like 1 less water card than we had before. But like the Spirit Math is a bit tighter here, so we do go down to the 3 waters because we really don't need 4 in this context. 4 was just nice in the previous versions for the ability to misenchant. We don't really need more than 8 fire for frost, so we're chill there. And then we move on to the final version, which is this is with 2 copies of both starter decks is where we end up with this one. So we get we have the 3rd. A lot of this Celestial lineup is going to look fairly similar, but we have the 3 rabbits in here compared to the version where we had 2 of the Hestia Poseidon starter deck. We have taken out the other bears that we've mentioned previously. Aren't all that great, and we're putting in the Zeuses because again those are pretty great, and we have the 3rd Hibernation in here, of course. Now we do have Cryoblast cut here. That was just a matter of fitting in the Zeuses. You could also drop the Ambrosias. I don't think they're strictly necessary here, or you could drop down the counter rune lineup a bit. Either of those work if you really want to have these 2 copies of Cryoblast in here. But this ends up with a pretty solid deck. This is a pretty solid bears list. If you want to upgrade this further with stuff from main sets, the main thing I would recommend pursuing is copies of Narpoon, which is a card from Frostfall. It also has some Stars reprints. Narpoon is a... Let me just pull it up on the search bar. Narpoon is a 4/3 water Elestral that when you normal cast it, you get to search your deck for a 1 Spirit Frost Elestral. So you get to search your deck for a copy of Ursical and add to your hand and help you get your combos going. Obviously, the card this would go in over is the War Mites. Another option to bear in mind is Small Tuga from base set. This is very similar to Narpoon, but it's a 2/5, and it is instead searching for your Fire Elestral. So this can let you get Ursir if you want to prioritize that more. Kinleo is another fairly decent card, especially if you go the Small Tuga route. You can Nexus Fires Spirits from your Ursaden and pop your opponent's Elestrals. I'm not the biggest fan of that. And you can also pick up copies of Eddie from Daybreak, as well as some Shattered Stars prints, as basically extra copies of what Galaxy is doing for you. That is hard for your opponent to crack back on. Your bears really like your opponent's stuff being in defense because it's less dangerous for them to swing in that situation. So those are the cards I would look to for upgrading beyond just the starter decks. With that said, let's move on to Zeus. Zeus is the other pretty easy one because the champions of Zeus are going for a pretty normal strategy. Hermes and Poseidon, not so much, but we'll get into that in a bit. So upgrade number 1, we are pulling from the Hermes deck. Now, the unfortunate thing with the Zeus Star deck is the instant we start upgrading it, there are 3 cards that we are just forced to take out because they are banned or limited on the ban list. If you're using a Star deck right out of the box, you can use the number of copies that are in the Star deck. You just have to be using the exact list. But the moment you start modifying it, you must adhere to the ban list. And the ban list has Elestrals at 0 copies allowed and Race to the Top at only 1 copy allowed. So we have to cut the 1 copy of Race and 2 copies of Elestrals right away. So the nice thing about Zeus being paired with Hermes is that like the Griffews and Volt Tempest stuff does appreciate having Wind Elestrals to ascend over. So we can pull in some wind stuff from the Hermes Star deck to fill out our body count. There's a bunch of Wind Elestrals in the Hermes Star deck that have 4 attack bodies, so they're very nice for that purpose. Specteris is also like a decent body, 5 attack. That makes our Spirit Math a bit awkward, but it's probably worth running the Specteris. Yeah. What else is here? We put in some extra counter runes as well, while taking out the worst bodies like Electrofly and Magneros are not very good cards, so you want to take those out. Thunderbolt of Zeus is also not very good. Circle of the Sky, also not very good. Pandora's Box is a pretty decent card for sideboards, but not for your main deck. And Nectar is just generally not a good card unless you're on a very specific kind of strategy that needs to turbo to a specific like big combo. So yeah, this is what we want to be looking at when we're pulling from Hermes. Then we get with the second copy of the same Star deck. This is a bunch of quantity upgrades. We get to go up to 3 Rabbit. We get the third Elestrals. Elestrals is not a super good card, but I am building this under the assumption that you want to build around the cool Volt Tempest stuff, which means we need a decent number of Champion of Zeus names, and we're not going to be able to get up to 3 copies of Titanic Strike or Valkyries with this method, so we want the Elestrals to round out that title count. We get a second copy of both Griffews and Volt Tempest in here, as well as the third copy of Galaxir. We keep in a Toxic Swarm just for numbers, and then put in a second Specteris. The Earthquake we also pull from the Hermes side. I didn't mention that before. We have a second Zeus's Call. This isn't necessarily a card I would keep in the long run, but it's decent here. And then we just get to round up our counter rune lineup and run the third Zeus. Spirit Math, more complicated, as we mentioned before, but you don't need nearly as many Thunders as you have in the original deck, so you're fine just cutting like 4 of them for the 2 Earths, 2 Lunars. And then, yeah, we're just cutting the Joltons, the Olympuses. These cards are decent, but there are better things we can be doing. We don't need the Cockatoodles anymore. This Toxic Swarm is just plainly better. We are cutting the Griffews and the Volt Tempest, the original ones, that is, to focus in on the Champion of Zeus, Volt Tempest stuff. And we cut Hurricane because we have Thunderstorm. And this might be just a personal thing. I don't really like having Thunderstorm and Hurricane in the same deck. It seems kind of contradictory. These are 2 different ways of removing runes, and they're both pretty expensive. So I kind of always find myself wanting to go for one or the other. But you could like keep the Hurricane in and drop the second Zeus's Call. That is a completely viable option for you to go for at this stage. Then we have with 1 copy of each starter. So we can't have those quantities anymore, unfortunately. We're back to the Joltons and the Cockatoodles and stuff like that. We put in the 2 Galaxies because Galaxies is a very good card. We put in the Cryoblast because it has some nice synergy with Zeus. And other than that, we're rounding out like our counter rune lineup and stuff like that. And taking out the original Griffews and Volt Tempest, the Race, the Mount Olympuses. Actually, I realized I made a mistake on this one. I kept Jolton in despite taking out the Mount Olympuses. honestly, you can just drop like this Cockatoodle to put the Olympus back in. I would suggest doing this. Yeah, I just realized that now. I made that. Oopsie. But you only really need the one Olympus for Jolton to be live, so this should be fine. And then we have the final upgrade. This is with 2 copies of both starters. This should look very similar to what we have with 2 copies of the Zeus and Hermes starter. The main difference is we have 3 Galaxy in here, and I think we have some kind of rune stuff filled out more fully here too. But otherwise, it is very, very similar to that list that we had before. We go down to 2 Elechick because, as I said, Elechick isn't too great of a card, and take out some of the wind chaff for a more like well-rounded Elestral lineup. And this ends up looking pretty good. There's more to upgrade here than we had with previous ones. I think with the final Champion of Zeus deck, you really want to choose between whether you want to do Griffew stuff or you want to do Volt Tempest stuff, because running both eats up a lot of deck slots. Stuff like the new Elechick, Escape from Tartarus. You can pull that up real quick. Not Elechick, Sparkit, sorry. Sparkit, Escape from Tartarus is a very good card to put in here. Just normal cast, you get to rip a card out of your opponent's hand. Pretty solid stuff. Also pretty good is Werepup, with the new Like a Void, that when you cast it out, you get to, the new Like a Void, sorry, you get to cast out any number of Werepups from your deck. Your engine requirements are pretty low, so you can just slot this stuff in pretty simply, without too much difficulty. Yeah, not much to really say there. Alright, let's move on to the next one. I want to get this moving a bit faster because we are at 22 minutes already. Next we have Hermes. The initial Hermes starter deck is a nightmare. This thing's a real nightmare. I don't know what's going on with this deck. The Ard Buds barely have any good targets. Like, you can search like the Spinef or like the one of Spectaris, but it's not a whole lot of good stuff that you really want to be searching with that. Even less so with the Ascension Ardvarum. We have these original Carry-Ons in here, which is not a very good card. The weirdest thing is that Spinosect is in here, but like the whole thing with Spinosect is that you cast out Spinef, you search Hermes, and you use Hermes to dump a Spinosect. Use Spinosect effect to Nexus a Wind from Hermes to Spinef, at which point you can use Spinef's effect to special send into the second Spinosect from the deck. There needs to be 2 Spinosects in your hand or deck to be able to pull off this combo, but the initial starter deck only has 1 copy of Spinosect, so you just can't do it. And then there's like just a bunch of weird stuff in the Ruin lineup. We've got Tornado, we've got Drops of Leaf, we've got Dense Fog, and we've got Charon's Obol in here as well as 2 different artifacts, because Hermes got 2 different artifacts. Just very, very strange stuff. Like, doesn't really function at all as a deck at this stage. And Hermes as a deck is just kind of weird because like you have a bunch of stuff that you want have effects when they're dumped from the deck, but specifically from the deck, and Hermes can only dump from the deck. So they're not really cards you want to draw. So it's not fantastic. So when we're just pulling from the Zeus deck, we are just trying to get rid of a bunch of the chaff because there's so many bad cards in here. We can't even really cut both copies of Carry-On. There's just not enough good cards to pull from the Zeus side, but we get to pull in the Ash Rabbits, the Joltons. We get to pull in the Galaxiers. That one's pretty big. The third Ambrosia, round up our counter rune lineup with some more real stuff. And like we end up like with a much more respectable deck at the end of all of that. We cut the Ardvarum too, of course. Spirit math changes quite a lot. We need to put in 3 Thunders and 2 Waters. We don't need anywhere near as many Lunars as are in the original Star deck, so we just cut down on that for the Waters and the Thunders. And then we move to the one where we have one of each of the Star decks. Again, we are just trying to cut a bunch of chaff here. Oh, what I cut here is actually kind of weird because it says... Oh, no, this is correct, this is correct, this is correct. No. I got confused for a second there. Don't mind me. So we're bringing in the galaxies. It's one of the main things we get to bring in here. We also get to bring in Divine Healing. Divine Healing is not something that I would put into any of the other decks, but like I think it's very nice in Hermes exactly. Hermes really wants some methods of healing, and Divine Healing is like a whack-ass heal card. And it helps. Divine Healing also helps us keep our Hermes around for longer, which allows for cards like Exaltair and Hermes Trickery to be live for longer. And like other than that, we're just rounding out our counter rune lineup. We have quite a few counter runes in here now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. But there's not really anything else for us to be putting in with the options that we have with this one. You'll notice that the Ascension lineup ends up pretty low in this one. The guy lineup, I mean. We only end up with 18 guys total, with 2 of them being Ascensions. So that's only 16 guys in all. But you know, it is what it is. We need to make it work somehow. And then the last version with 2 copies of both starters. Of course, we are making the Spinal Sect line actually function now. Actually, did I even show the 2 starters version before? Yeah, here it is. Yeah. I definitely showed this before. I'm pretty sure I showed this before. But if I didn't before, you go up to 3 Spinev. You've got the Spinal Sect combo properly working now. You go up to 5 Cockadoodles to really lean on the Dracodoodle stuff. Just like a lot more of the good cards. We're able to focus in a lot more on that. And same here. This is basically the same deck. What do we even pull in from... I don't even have the... I don't actually have... Yeah, I think the only change in this one from the other 2... just the 2 copies of Hermes Zeus is that we put in the 2 shield. But this could honestly be Divine Healing too. I couldn't really find a spot where I really wanted to fit that in here, but like if you really want to focus on the Dracodoodle stuff or something like that, you can just cut the Spinal Sect line completely, honestly, and be running the 2 Divine Healing. I do really like that in the context of Hermes, especially when you're focused on Dracodoodle. So that works out pretty well if you want to go that route as well. So Divine Healing also works in here. And then lastly, we have the Poseidon. This one is also a nightmare to work with, because like if we're focusing in on the big boss card of this deck, Majesty. Majesty wants to be built on a very different axis from normal decks, and there's just a lot of chaff in here, like the Javalantis stuff that we've got in here, that is Champion of Poseidon stuff, is just actually a completely different deck than the Majesty stuff. So it's very strange in here. I don't really understand why this is the deck that has Divine Healing. I don't understand why Rock and a Hard Place is in here. There's nothing that really works off Rock and a Hard Place, so it's very strange in here. And I think the biggest annoyance with the Poseidon Starter deck is that there's no copies of Eddie or Original Galaxy. And Majesty likes those 2 cards a lot more than it likes these galaxies. Oh, I forgot. I need to go back real quick. For the Hermes Starter deck, if you're upgrading it beyond this one, number 1 card to seek out is Nemesail. Get 3 Nemesail in your deck. You need that healing. Okay, back to Poseidon. But yeah, the lack of... so, Eddie is a 4/1, changes the position of an Elestral. So that will allow you to do like, okay, you have your Majesty in attack position, you cast out Eddie for turn, you switch the Majesty back to defense, you get to heal 2 off the defense mode effect, and then you can still switch Majesty back to attack. And Galaxy makes the 6 attack of Majesty not really a problem, because as long as this Galaxy is on the field, your Majesty's stats are going to be swapped, so it's going to be 14 attack, which puts you in a much better spot. Since the Champion of Poseidon stuff splits into two very different directions, it makes this initial starter deck a real mess. There's only so much we can do with it when we're just pulling from the Hestia deck. There's not really any Elestrals we can pull in. So like we only really get to cut the Champion Globby and the original Javalantis that really aren't doing anything for anyone, and they're Ascensions anyway, so they're super easy to cut. And like, what do we put in? We put in like some counter runes, some additional counter runes that we can pull from the other side. I believe it's exactly shield. And then we go, okay, what else can we do with the stuff that we have over there? Well, that side has Ambrose, so I guess we can put that in. And that side has one Blizzard, one Chains, one Helios' Chariot Ride, that I guess we can put in to make it easier for Majesty to stick. But that's really about it. There's not much we can really do on this one. Change the Spirit Math a bit to put in 2 Fires, 2 Frosts, cutting the Lunars. We don't need anywhere near that we don't need anywhere near 16 Waters for this deck. So it's like super easy to just cut stuff for other elements. So with the second copy of the Poseidon Hestia starter, there's a lot more stuff we can cut. We get to put in the second Tatagra, second Stuggle, third Foamy. Foamy's great for searching out our Stuggle champion to get our stuff started. Second Harpy, third Galaxy, third Plucky, third Nectar, third Poseidon, second Trident. Trident is actually really good with Majesty because it means it can swing into your opponent without having to worry about getting bounced to him with shield. Round up the counter rune stuff a lot, focusing in on the stuff that lets us guarantee protect Galaxy. Majesty, I mean. So we cut the PTA because that doesn't do that, and we have 3 Gaze, 3 Shield, 3 Altar. This is also one of the only cases where I go with 2 Globby, 2 Majesty, like upping the Ascension count. Because like if one Majesty goes down, you really want to be able to get up another. So you want a second Globby and you want a second Majesty so that you can go through the line again. Okay. Then we have with 1 of each starter. We're stuck with a bunch of the chaff again, but we get to put in Ass Rabbit, which is pretty nice. We get to put in Earthquake. Hurricane is something that the deck really, really, really appreciates. We still get the third Nectar. We still get the third Gaze. We get copies 2 and 3 of Altar. And for the last 2, it's just like, I guess we put in Drops of Leaf. It helps us find some consistency, I guess, but Drops of Leaf is not that great of a card, so it doesn't feel super good putting this in. But, you know, this could, like, you could easily just make these, like, 2 Atlantis instead. I think it would just be about the same quality, if not better. And then, lastly, we have with 2 copies of both starters, the main... I forgot. I don't actually have it in here. I forgot about the Rise. You get Rise from the Hermes starter. Oops. No. You get Rise from the Hermes starter. So I would definitely put that in over one of the drops because Rise from the Ashes. It's a card that's limited to 1 now. Very powerful. For 3, you get to target an Astral and you're under 1 special cast in attack position. So if your opponent clears your Majesty, Rise is a way of just going, okay, I'm going to get right back. Majesty as an archetype was like much more powerful in my testing before Rise got limited. Rise getting limited was a big deal for this deck. But we come back to 2 copies of each starter. And we put in the Rise. We have 2 Hurricane now. That's a really big deal because you really want to make sure you can stick your Majesty. And honestly, this is looking, at this point with 2 starters, this is actually looking pretty close to a constructed Majesty deck. We've got 3 Plucky for consistency. We've got the 3 Ash Rabbits to help us find our pieces. Our counter rune lineups are exclusively the stuff that will always protect Majesty. So we've got 3 Gorgon's Gaze, 3 Shield, 3 Altar. We cut the Tsunami because if you didn't realize already, Tsunami doesn't work when Majesty is up. Because Majesty in attack position will make every spirit on the field that is enchanting an Elestral water instead of their original element. And Tsunami only changes the position of Elestrals that are not water enchanted. So if you cast Tsunami with Majesty on the field in attack position, exactly 0 Elestrals will have their positions changed, so Tsunami can't protect Majesty from your opponent's attacks. You need to be it needs to be Altar, Shield, and Gorgons. Those are the ones that will actually protect Majesty from attacks. But we have a lot of consistent tools here. If you want to upgrade from here, you don't really need these healers. These healers like made like decent like slot filler, but we get enough healing from Majesty itself if we need it. But I don't even feel the need for Ambrosia here. So you know, yeah. If you want to upgrade from here, Eddie from Daybreak and Original Galaxy from base set, the Majesty Starter Deck and the Chronodial Starter Deck. It comes in all of those. That is a great card to pick up. Helps your Majesty have a more respectable stat line. Another really good card for the deck is Peliquarius. I prefer this over Foamy because Foamy searches your water Celestial when it's destroying battle. If your opponent has like Spectares or Gorgon's Gaze or some other way of suppressing your Foamy, they can completely deny this your ability to get this effect. Also, if they destroy the Foamy by effect, you will not get the search. And if they have multiple Elestrals, there's the risk of Foamy. You go into Suggle, and they just attack into the Suggle with their other Elestral, and you don't get the piece you're actually trying to find. So that's a bit of an issue. Peliquarius, instead, on normal cast, just searches your deck for a 1-spirit water Elestral and adds it to your hand. So this card is much better at the job of we need to find Suggle and get it into your hand. Peliquarius is just way better at doing that for us. It's just much more reliable at being able to do that for us. It has much less counterplay. So you definitely want that over Foamies and the Eddies and the Galaxies. But this isn't too far off from like a decent constructed Majesty list. So yeah, that is all of it. That is every deck. That is all 4 of the starter decks. Upgrading them as far as you can using just the starter deck cards. There's some places where you could have upgraded a bit farther by having a 3rd starter deck, but I don't think that's reasonable for anyone. And of course, you could pull cards that are good for the decks from the 4 packs that you get in those starter decks. But you wouldn't pull stuff like Eddie and Galaxy because they're not on the set, is the thing. But yeah, I hope this helps anyone who is starting off in Elestrals or just wants to explore these decks on a budget. Yeah, I hope this was helpful to all of you. And I will be doing deck profiles of like basically all of these decks in the near future, what I feel that the constructed version should look like. So look forward to that in the future. Subscribe if you want to see that. And with that said, this is Hunter Surge signing off.